My exhibition is about identity and how it is changing, and all of my artworks, they like create a path through which people are going. And in my exhibition I explore how sometimes people end up being traumatized and harmed by this. And one of my favorite pieces that I think mostly describes it is this one, which called contact tracing, because I covered mostly lots of issues which people face during period of 2 years, and COVID was one of them, and quarantine and everything. It made people start overthinking about themselves, and I explored it in this piece, and I showed how people were aiming to face the better future.
The overarching theme of my exhibition is overthinking, and I try to depict the causes and consequences of overthinking, especially between childhood and adulthood, adolescence. And I begin my exhibition with an entrapment of thoughts, which reflects the process of overthinking and how one tries to escape overthinking, which I rely a lot on symbolism, with the highway, for example, to show how one tries to escape. I talk about self-destruction, which I reflect in my piece of Life on the Edge, where I talk about how one's self-destruction usually affects the people that support them the most, family and friends, their support system. It usually affects them before it affects themselves. In this piece as well, where it shows the obsession with a specific activity to try to escape from certain thoughts. And I also try to talk about trying to conform to traditional gender norms, because this is very prominent still, even though it appears less prominent. So I use many different medias to try to communicate some of my ideas, and I try to link some of them back together by organizing them in chronological order.
The concept of my exhibition is womanhood, and basically my exhibition aims to explore the stages of a woman's life throughout childhood, adolescence, and adulthood, and kind of different societal restrictions or societal pressures and expectations that they undergo throughout those phases. And it's also meant to highlight how women are subject to social expectations all throughout their life, from their childhood all the way to their adolescence and adulthood. This is one of my favorite pieces that I worked on probably for the longest time, and it displays kind of the way in which social pressures and conformity lead women to reduce their identity or distort their identity based on these social pressures. So we have the true self, the figure which is subject to social expectations and pressures, which are signified by the eyes. And she fabricates a kind of perfect societal version of herself, which is faceless, which kind of is meant to symbolize the way in which her identity has been reduced as a result of conformity.
My exhibition is really about the loss of purity throughout women's life as she ages. I kind of show that transition throughout my exhibition, and I use sort of different stereotypical feminine symbols, such as the flowers and animals that are perceived as fragile and innocent. One of my paintings, Mother, I decided to use angels as their main symbol of purity and innocence, and I displayed her wings transitioning from white to black to not only represent the loss of innocence, but also the life cycle as you age and get older, as many women feel as though when they're younger. For example, in another one of my works, I focus on the adolescent aspect, where a lot of girls try to rebel against the societal standards of being pure, and yeah.
So my exhibition is about life and death, and the way that it's formatted goes from the beginning of life to the end, which is death. And I try to focus on the main stages in life, like birth and being a teenager and falling in love and all that type of stuff. And towards the end, I added some religious paintings to show how death can be a reality and the religious side of death. And throughout my exhibition, I also added some of my own memories by sticking up boarding passes or maps that I've collected throughout my travels around the world. And I also tested out a lot of different mediums, like digital art and oil painting, and yeah.
In my exhibition, I explored the theme of adolescence and coming of age, and how this transition from one chapter, which is childhood, to another chapter, which is adulthood, affects a person. I explore in different pieces the ideas of mental health and inner world, as well as how we as teenagers interact with the world around us. So yeah, that is what I want to convey with my exhibition.